We are on page
104.
18104. I thought 5. Okay, so we start. But we had read the Gossamer marriage hall.
Yes, its inner side sustains this outer scene.
And yeah, start from the beginning of the sentence. A gossamer marriage hall of mind with form is hidden by a tapestry of dreams. Heaven's meaning steals through it as through a veil. Its inner sight sustains this outer scene. So this is the plane where the form has been made in not with matter, but in the world of concepts, the ideas that are there in the mind, and the mind is actually a projection of a world of truth above the mind. It has come down into the mind. So it's like a kind of a meeting place where in the mind we make a form, we create an idea, and then in the world of external manifestation, give it a shape. You have to have an idea, then you give it a shape. But first, that form that comes into the mind is actually a projection of something which is absolute. Because deep within us, it is this manifestation of that which is perfect, which is coming down into play. It comes from the origin. And there are intermediary planes. That abstract mind does not have to meet the resistance or the opposition of hardened matter. Because matter often comes in the way. When you want to make something, the field of matter becomes not always capable of transmitting that idea. I want to give it a shape, but I can't transmit that idea. But in the world of that perfect formulation, that resistance is not there. So we have perfect ideas, ideals, concepts. They are beautiful. You translate them into fact, perhaps they are less beautiful in the beginning because they have to meet with the nature of matter, where there is darkness and ignorance and inertia. So it has to be shaped. Every thought has in its essence something that is an expression of light, of truth. It is, on a lesser level, a projection of clarity, of light, of truth. Every manifestation of that thought has to have, for a very long time, the resistance, the imperfections that matter always carries. So the actual, you might say, purpose of existence is why cannot we transmit that perfect plan into our lives? Because the vital, the physical, they are not yet transmuted, they are not yet changed. So I want to do something, you might say, I have the idea of what I want to do. When I try to do it, it doesn't manifest as I should manifest it. These are the different levels of expression. The starting point is light. The final manifestation for a very long time is less luminous. The aim of Sri Aurobindo's yoga is to make that light and even the original light manifest here. Because it is in this field of matter that the final expression of form, perfect expression of form. Sometimes we see that in great art, for instance. The artist has an inspiration. It's a kind of a projection of a vision, of a connection with the world of truth, of light, of eternal permanent existence. There is nothing that is short-lived. It is permanent. There the worlds are perfect and complete and eternal. And then he tries to give it an expression. And in that expression, there is some kind of distortion sometimes. So it breaks up with time. What we try to do becomes an expression of that imperfection. So this is why he says it is a marriage hall of matter and mind. It's a blending. All marriages are not perfectly happy. All blendings are not harmonious. There has to be an abolition of self, of ego. Matter has a very strong, you might say, aspect of its own reality. Matter is true, it is real, it thinks. So it doesn't believe in the world of thought. Thought has its own ideas, and that is perfect. Matter is not yet completely luminous, it cannot transmit that thought. If these resistances were to go, it's like in our life. If we could eliminate our egos, if we could eliminate the resistances, what we can be in essence and what we are in actual fact can become expressions of one another. Because sometimes we are surprised at ourselves. We have such wonderful dreams, and then we see that we can't live up to them. Something is missing in me. Something has not been perfected. Something is perhaps still attached to the lower nature, and I don't want to change. So this is the whole play of the complex expression of truth at the different planes. But every plane is part of the universal divine plan. So every plane has to have the essence of the divine in it. Matter is essentially spirit. Matter is essentially divine. So is life, so is mind, so is form, so is shape. But at every level there are things that come in the way. And that is why the first expression of change, as Sri Aurobindo has put it in the synthesis, is purification. We have to purge ourselves, we have to purify ourselves of all that comes in the way. Earth has to purify herself of the lower creation. Then it can become heaven. We have always had a dream of heaven. This is a heaven. Heaven is where there is no error, where there is no suffering, where there is no death, where everything is permanent. But it cannot last. Death comes where there is imperfection. And where there is no imperfection, there should be no death, and there is no death. That is the whole problem. With deterioration, there is dissolution. There is no deterioration, there is no dissolution. So in the subtle physical, in the world of subtle matter, that permanence is there. The existence is permanent, eternal. It is there, for instance, that Mother has told us that Sri Aurobindo is permanently present. He is present. Sri Aurobindo, in his entire consciousness, is present. But physically, we are not able to connect with him because our physical nature is dense. It doesn't have that transparency, it doesn't have that purity, so we cannot relate. So you can perhaps accept the truth on faith, if you have faith, and says, Mother says he is there, so he is there. That's very simple, and that's the only help, really. Because I can't see him there. Or maybe sometimes you can. Sometimes there are moments when you do feel, I'm not just this physical being, I'm related to another plane, and then to yet another, and yet another, because that is the expansion of the journey of consciousness. And as my being becomes more and more conscious, I can travel through plane after plane. This is the book of the traveler of the worlds. That is what Ashwapati is doing. He's moving from one plane to the other and sees the truth of each plane. So he says, It is hidden, occult is hidden behind this grosser nature's wall. So there is this gross nature, gross matter, heavy and dense and inert. Behind that is the subtle world. Matter is there, it is matter, it is the principle of matter is there, but its grossness is not there. This is the sukshma sharir, as it is called. The whole form of the principle of form is there, but the density and resistance and the wall of opposition is not there. So it is hidden behind a tapestry of dreams, because that is what we always want, a perfect expression. Perfection is a dream, it's a perfect expression of mind with form. Heaven's meanings steal through it as through a veil. This is what we call heaven. The forms that we have placed in heaven, the beings we have placed in heaven, are always perfect. They are free of any form of diminution. They do not become distorted. They do not age. It is ageless and deathless. That's what our play of what is heavenly is, a permanent perfection. We might touch what may be few moments in time which you may say this is perfect. It can't be more beautiful than this. Man does sometimes have experiences. Just for a while, when you touch something of complete beauty, you say it can't get more beautiful than this. And then it goes away. Whether it's in our emotional life, whether it's in our physical life, whether it is in what is behind our eyes, if our eyes have been really cleansed of ready-made notions. Sometimes we don't see because we have been taught to see only a few things. If we can empty ourselves of ourselves, then we can really imbibe so much. The whole universe is waiting for us to be discovered. But we don't discover things because that is the fault of our education or our development. We are trained to appreciate this and say, this you call beautiful, this you don't call beautiful. We have ready-made ideas. In heaven, this is not there. There are no ready-made ideas. There are perfect forms. So in that world, all beings exist. All beings of whatever kind, even the smallest, even the small spirits, they are there. There is nothing that is not given a place. That's the kingdom of God. In the kingdom of God, everything has a place, has its own place. It doesn't occupy another's place. So this is the finer consciousness. Heaven's meaning steals through it as through a veil. Its inner sight sustains this outer scene. This is what we have to have, the inner sight. You don't see with your eyes only. Always behind your eyes, you have a sense. Behind your sense, you have a mind. Behind your mind, you have a consciousness. If that is awake, you learn to see differently. We think, for instance, mothers teaching somebody how to paint. You say something is dark, it's full of shadows. She says you cannot have a perfect expression unless you know how to play with shadows. Shadows are necessary in order to give value to the beauty of form. There is nothing that has to be rejected. The way you see them is different. The nature of your vision will define the beauty of the form. There is nothing ugly. It has a place it occupies in the, you might say, plan of the whole. All do not have to be replicas of that absoluteness. It would be very boring, isn't it? Each one is different. Each thing has its own absolute. This is part of the play of multiplicity. It has a tact. So it is not just, it is part of your senses. You see, then tact is touch. Literally it is touch. It's tactile, something that you can get in touch with. It has a tact our touch cannot attain. It has a different touch, not the touch of your physical sense, the touch of your spirit sense. So you are within, there is another being inside. That has its own field of experiences. You see with your inner vision, you see with your inner sense, you see with your inner touch. Those who can regularly live in that field have already begun to have a richer inner life. But those who are purely living on the outside, their external consciousness alone guides them. They believe only in the reality of the external material world. Those who realize, I'm a being made of matter, but not only matter, and not only spirit, but a play of different combinations of all kinds of forces. It depends on where I take my stand. I take my stand in my inner being. I see a whole expansion of experiences that are opening up. So it is a purity of sense we never feel. So this becomes the beginning of the spirit. Purity belongs to the realm of the spirit. The purity of the senses, the perfect sense, perfect taste, perfect seeing, perfect touching. We don't realize, even if I sometimes think there are people whose consciousness is in their hands. They touch something, their touch is a conscious touch. There are others who touch the same thing and there is not the same reaction. There are those who have a consciousness on their tongue. They can recognize the play of the variety, the richness of experience that is there in the taste. It is not just a physical phenomenon, there is a supra-physical play. So the two are not opposites. The physical and the supra-physical are interlinked. Man is not a material and physical being only. He is not only a physical being and then a vital being and then a mental being and then a spiritual being. They all blend with one another. The spirit is there in the body. There is a mind in the body. The mind in the body guides the body. There is a mind of the senses. There is a life of behind the eyes. All these are such a wonderful complex game of variety, of richness. The human nature is something like the whole universe is there in man. All that is there on earth is there in man. And they interplay. You can't say, today I am retiring, I don't want to talk to anybody, I want to be silent. I cut off myself, as some ascetics do. That doesn't mean they have conquered their vital nature, they have not conquered their subconscious nature and so on. Because they're just withdrawn. The moment they come out of this, all of it comes out as before. It has to be taken up. It has to be purified. There is a reason why all these things are there. There is a wealth of experience which we contain. It is not by turning our backs to this world that we will change either ourselves or the world. We have to become embodiments of consciousness in every part of our being. So even in our physical life, you can have a consciousness. Many people who are craftsmen, they are not artists. Those who can make figures or paint pictures or paint even on fabric or paper, who copy other pictures. But their fingers have acquired a certain consciousness. That is already something wonderful. They are not creators, they are transmitters. There are those who create. There are those who can really relate with the origin. And they create. They see the play of the divine in all things, and they are the great artists, the great creators. There are those who are transmitters. There are those who don't write poetry, but who can recite poetry, who can transmit the sound, who can transmit the vibrations that they have not written, but it passes through their voices, it passes through their beings. Something is also happening to them, they contribute. This is something we often don't realize. We are always transmitting vibrations, different modes of consciousness at every step. So if we can make our life harmonious, beautiful, without having to take away the activity, we take away the fixed ideas that we have already made for ourselves. I am not a creator, I am a copyist, I just transmit. But that itself is a channel. Man is a channel. Something is being passed on through us. The universal energy is taken in by us when we breathe. The universal energy flows out of us when we breathe out. The universal consciousness is taken in by us. The universal consciousness is transmitted by us when we interact with the world around us. And that is what is important. In our daily life, it is the consciousness that you transmit. It's not the activity only. It is a state of being in which you are transmitting that. And that is one of the experiments that the mother has started here, first in the ashram, and now in Auroville, wherever it is, they're not different. It's always a state of consciousness that is being done. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. It's what state you are in when you do something. What is your inner state? Do you have anything to say? So he calls it so beautifully, a finer consciousness with happier lines. When you say happy, this meaning is that it is beautiful. Something happy is something that cannot be improved. It's part of the language, and you say this is a happy phrase. When you express something and say this is a happy phrase, it doesn't mean you're talking of joyful, happy things, but it is beautifully phrased. It cannot be improved. With happier lines, it has a tact our touch cannot attain, a purity of sense we never feel. Its intercession with the eternal ray inspires our transient earth's brief-lived attempts at beauty and the perfect shape of things. This is what happens with creators of art. They are brief-lived. The artist is a genius, but he's not a saint. But there are moments when he opens up to some kind of an inflow, an inrush. Something passes through him and he creates. When it has passed out of him, he stops being a genius. He becomes a common man, which is sometimes a bit risky. As Mother had once told us, there are great writers who open themselves to an inrush of light, of knowledge, of creativity. But when it has flown out of them, what happens? They sink, because that power had raised them to a certain height of capacity. When it is over, it has come out of them, they sink. So he said, don't read their lives. You see the other side of their being. When they rise very high, they fall very low. So we see their ordinary lives, it is full of darkness, full of confusion, full of selfishness, full of ego. You have all these things, and yet the same writer, at other moments, unless he's a yogi, rises to heights of creation that are marvelous. It goes up and down. So the genius has to be a yogi to be able to stay on that height. You get breathless if you're too long on the heights. You can't breathe. So it's the same thing. We can't stand. If I tell you, you have to read Sri Aurobindo 10 hours a day, after a while you'll be reading words. Maybe if you do that, you won't be able to absorb. The capacity to hold on to that experience, which you might get in the first 15 minutes or first hour, will perhaps not be there, at least in the beginning. It's extremely difficult. We are intercessors. He's insisting that we are transmitters. It's through man only, and that is the great function of man. The connection with the different worlds can be established only by man, not by other beings, not by beings from other planes, because there are other beings. They're waiting for man, through whom they can express themselves. Men who live in time, in the field of space, through them something has to be done. It is always this, it's a privilege to be born a human being.
This thing reminds me of the biography of Sharat Chandra. Sharat Chandra. The biography is in Hindi, Avara. It is named Avara Masiha. And in that, he always tells that if I knew I would become so famous, I'd have lived a better life. My life is not according to what I write.
Yes, and even he, though it is Sharat Chandra, you mean, he was not on a very great height. He was on the vital plane mostly. So pain, suffering, all the human complications of the emotions and the poverty of the field of human experience, this is what occupied him. But supposing you take somebody who expresses... Shakespeare is... Surendra puts him in a different category. He didn't even pretend to belong to the world of the highest plane. He was on the vital plane. He says he belonged to the world of life. He did not write about life. He says in the future poetry, life took up his pen and wrote herself out through him. Life wrote. He did not write. As if she found in him a medium. He did not try to be a philosopher. He did not try to be a moralist. He did not try to teach anyone anything. That's what happens sometimes when poets do, like Wordsworth he speaks of. He was a visionary. He was a seer. He had experiences. Then he became a moralist. He tried to teach them, don't be like this, be like this. He lost his genius. So therefore, even if you today, if you want, it is, now everything is available on Google, but otherwise, to get the complete works of Wordsworth is very difficult. Usually you get selected works. I tried when I was a student. You can't get complete works. If you take the selected works, in some poems, Sri Aurobindo says he would have been the greatest poet. But the thing is that he cannot sustain himself there. Then he falls. Because his intellectual mind has made choices. This is right, this is good, this you should be. Then you lose it. It happens with many, very many great writers who are very great. Then their mind becomes opinionated. It has its own opinions, it has its own fixed ideas, and then it's gone. With Shakespeare, it was not there. He was not a moralist, he didn't even pretend to be. He was not a teacher. He says, you know what he said about life, though he used to spoke about life? Life is a tale told by an idiot signifying nothing. Because we think it is everything. It is nothing. At the end of his life, this is what Macbeth finds.
What about Goethe and Kafka and all this?
In Kafka, oh, they don't even try. Kafka is Kafka.
Yeah, yes.
Huh? No, they don't even have the notion that there is something spiritual. It is the social, moral, intellectual aspects on which the later part of the 19th and 20th century have focused on. When they realize that there is something more, then they back off. Then they can't. There was somebody in the greatest French poet is Rimbaud. You know when he stopped writing? At 18. He went away. He couldn't write. Whatever he has written, and that's among the greatest poems that are written in French. He left. He went away, he left France. He stopped writing. He said, I can't write. That is a problem. When the instrument feels it's incapable, it's entering fields of experience it cannot handle. That is where the yoga comes in. The instrument has to be prepared. Body, life, mind, spirit, they have to be trained, they have to be prepared. Otherwise, you call down a force and then you're not able to manifest that force, you crash.
Didi, what about William Blake? Blake.
Yes, Blake is a spiritualist, but Blake came from a very poor family. So his mental education was, he didn't have much of a mental education. But he was a visionary, but his mind, its philosophy, all these things did not come in the way this. Sometimes we say you have to develop your mind. If you develop your mind too much, you're not a poet.
It interferes.
It comes in the mind. You're a seer. In Sanskrit, kavi is seer. The meaning of the word kavi itself is seer. One who sees, who doesn't think. He doesn't judge. He doesn't teach. He sees. What he sees, he writes. He doesn't say this is right, that's wrong. But if you are a sermoner, you're writing sermons, saying you should be like this, you should not be like this. These are helpful people at a certain stage, certainly. At a certain stage, it's not, it does make some sense to society, but they stop there. And their own development stops there also. That's the problem. So this is why it's a very frail world, it's very beautiful and very complex. So this is why our transient earth's brief-lived attempts at beauty, sometimes they're brief-lived attempts at the perfect shape of things. In rooms of the young divinity of power, an early play of the eternal child, the embodiments of his outwinging thoughts, laved in a bright everlasting wondrous tints, and lulled by whispers of that lucid air, take dream-hued rest, like birds on timeless trees, before they dive to float on earth-time's sea. So he's giving a whole inner experience with a beautiful image. In rooms of the young divinity of power, that is the power of slow evolution of consciousness. And that consciousness wants to manifest at every stage a kind of a preparation for the final ultimate, just like a flower. It's preparing itself to become first a very tiny shoot, then it becomes a bud, then it becomes full-blown flower. It takes time. In man also it is there. There is a budding consciousness. For a long time we are buds. The bud is not yet ready to blossom. There is a young divinity, but it is a divine principle. So at a certain stage there are perfect buds and there are less perfect buds. The perfect bud becomes a perfect flower. A bud that has been eaten up already by the worm in the bud is there. There are worms inside the bud and then the bud doesn't blossom. The rose opens, it has been eaten up by a worm inside the rose. This is man's nature. In us also there are certain impurities that do not allow us to flower, do not allow us to manifest that perfection. So that is why this young divinity of power, an early play of the eternal child. The child is playing, is toying with this field of multiple manifestation of form. This is the world of form. This is the subtle matter. It's like everything is a play of complete forms. If you take a little child, his He's full of dreams. He believes in things that are in his mind and they are real for him. It doesn't matter. There is a certain connection with the world of an inner life unknown to us. It's so spontaneous. He lives in that world of dreams, that world exists. Later you may spoil it for the child and say, all these are not true. He says, when we speak to children about spirits and fairies, Mother says, don't try to dissuade them. They do see them. There are spirits everywhere. If a child sees and connects with them and is happy, his mental, rational being has not yet become an obstacle. It's like just yesterday or 2 days ago, there was that little child, my neighbor. It's his birthday tomorrow. So on the birthday in kindergarten, they give things to the other children. So he wanted to give ice cream to all the children. So they told him, it's too cold, don't give ice cream now. He says, no, I'll tell Dusmer, she'll make it hot. But tomorrow it will be, I'll tell Dusmer, don't worry. He's so confident that he will tell Dusmer will make it hot. Then you can give ice cream. Then it can be cold again. With so much trust. It's such a simple and absolute faith. He doesn't even question. You don't laugh because I couldn't laugh. I was so filled with wonder. This is so simple. No, it won't be cold, I know. I'll tell Dusmer. Dusmer will keep it hot so they can all have ice cream. That sense of something, a connection with a power that is at work. It's an unthinking statement. He didn't think it out. He knew it was, if I tell her, she'll do it. I don't think they gave ice cream. But the grown-ups are different. That's what grown-ups lose. We lose that simplicity, that spontaneous trust. This is the young divinity, the embodiments of his outwinging thoughts laved in a bright, everlasting wondrous tints. The embodiments of his outwinging thoughts are the forms you create. As your consciousness grows, you make a picture. You make like a small child. Very often a child draws a picture. He draws a picture of a house. That house has always got a path, a flower outside the house, the smoke going up. But it's never a tumble-down, broken, shabby house. It's always something so harmonious. It's automatic that you create something beautiful. It's not great art, it's pure art. The purity of the nature of the child is manifested in the drawing that he makes. The artist will say, you don't make a house like this. Houses are not like that. For him it is. This is where his outwinging thoughts, automatically our thoughts go towards that which is beautiful, harmonious. As we grow up, we lose that faculty. We become realistic. We see the world as it is. The world as it is not beautiful. The world around us is ugly, is faulty. Accept reality as it is. And that simplicity is gone. It is in simplicity, in naturalness, that the connection with these worlds are there. That's why he uses the word of the child. You have to be a child inside. So laved in a bright, everlasting, wondrous tints. He speaks of the brief-lived attempts, and then he speaks of bright, everlasting. We make manifestations of that which is eternal for a short while. Something that is perfect. That is the attempt in the world of form. I don't know if you are aware of it, But Mother was an artist, and she speaks, I think, the attempt by that person who was an embodiment of the manifestation of art, you might say. She speaks of Leonardo. And you see, as he was drawing, sketching the Mona Lisa, how many times and how long he worked simply on her hands. The shape of her hands, the fingers, the physical, but they are, until they were embodiments of that perfection that a hand should be, he went on and on and on and on, making sketches. Hands are not perfect. There are all kinds of hands. But he wanted to manifest that perfection in the world of form. In the world of form, it is something that is an absolute. And that is why that painting, you see any part of that painting, or you take any part of that, she speaks also of the Pietà, the sculpture of Michelangelo, where he's depicting the Mother of Christ in marble. But the sense of stone, when he's making the flow of the veil on her head, it's like cloth. So supple, so soft, and yet it is stone. So this ability to transmit one form of perfection in another field, the field of stone, there are not too many like that who can do that. They don't fix it. There is this kind of gracefulness, there is a kind of softness in the flow of the line of the veil as it falls, in the face of grief that she shows as she's holding her dead son on her legs. So these things are there. That matter, stone, manifests emotion, manifests softness, manifests grace. One field is not alien to another. It's not a fixed world. So this is the young divinity of power. Before this, they dive to float on earth times sea. Stop there. She spoke a lot about art, Mother. A lot.
Is that in collected works, Jhumur-di? Are they in the collected works?
Yes, they are part of it. Not in the collected works only. Some of them are in the collected works. Some of them are when she was teaching Huta about painting. She was teaching there also. There are letters, correspondences, not just with Huta, but others who were learning to paint. The early ashram artists who used to paint or even take pictures, photographs. Every photographer used to send their pictures to Mother. So she would say what you have to see. When you choose to make a photograph, you don't take a snap. Can you bring out the spirit from the face? Can you select that moment of the play of light and shade, where something more than form manifests itself? She used to keep those photographs also. That is why the first exhibition of photography that was made here, she says photography is an art, if the photographer is an artist. The photographer has to be an artist. The artist is in his eyes. Not just in his eyes, he has to be in his soul. The soul and the spirit, the opening to certain moments of, they are sometimes short-lived moments, a flash of perfection. Then you capture that moment.